All right, welcome everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. We'll go ahead and get started about 3 minutes after the hour to give everyone a chance to join the webinar. Just as a note, this morning we did send out a survey to everyone who registered for today's webinar. It's just one question, so please go ahead and take a moment to provide any feedback. We certainly appreciate any and all feedback that you all have to give. Welcome again to those who have joined. We're going to go ahead and get started in about 3 minutes or so, just to give everyone an opportunity to join. Just a note, we did send out a survey. It's one question, so please take a moment and give any feedback for us that you may have while we're waiting before we go ahead and get started today. So welcome again to those who joined. We're going to get started in just a moment. Just a quick note, we did send out a survey for everyone who registered for today's webinar. It's just one question. We're looking for your feedback. So if you have an opportunity, while we wait here or throughout the webinar, please take a moment to respond and provide feedback. It's certainly appreciated. And we'll get started in just a moment. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. As I mentioned, we did send out a survey this morning to everyone who registered for today's webinar. So please take a moment to provide any feedback, either during the webinar or after. Your feedback is certainly appreciated. I want to welcome everyone to our latest feature review for our Opera release. And before I get turned over to our team who's going to be going through the features, I want to do a quick round of introductions. But before I do so, I do want to also highlight there was a note that was sent out yesterday that the release date for Opera is now December 22nd. Moving on to our presenters. So my name is Ben Ober. I'm with the customer success team here. I'll be your moderator for today's session. I also have the privilege of introducing two of my colleagues and our presenters for today's session, Yashka Boyle, our Director of Product Management, and Natalie Kwan, our Product Manager for QbDVision. A few housekeeping items for today I want to cover as we get started. All participants will remain muted throughout the entire webinar. We do have a Q&A section on the Zoom toolbar. That's for you to use and add any questions as we go through the webinar. We will have a Q&A section at the end of the session. And we'll also be sharing the recording, the deck, as well as the Q&A responses after today's webinar. Next, I have just a few announcements before handing it over. Supporting our customers is always a top priority for us here at QbDVision. I want to take a moment and highlight our product portal, to give everyone a glimpse of our roadmap and provide any feedback of our list of features that we're currently looking at and reviewing. The product portal can also be used to check if we have a feature on our roadmap before you submit a new request. So it might save you some time up front if you're wanting to request a new feature. But this is ultimately where you can be heard and provide feedback to us and our product team specifically. As we continue to grow, we certainly encourage all of you to come in and help prioritize and shape our roadmap and what we are going to be focusing on, as well as provide any insights to those features. If you have any questions additionally, feedback, or would like to get additional information on anything, you can always reach out to our CSM team or email support with your questions. And if you haven't looked at our Knowledge Hub lately, we've provided a lot of new information related to the Opera release, as well as we keep updating as new features come out. We encourage you to check that out and see some of the latest information there. And with that, now I'm going to hand it over to Natalie so she can kick us off with what's new in the Opera release.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Ben. I'm going to go ahead and take over. So I'm going to start walking us through with what's new in this Opera release, starting with the themes. So in this release, and what we like to do in general with our releases are to harmonize workflows through a single source of truth. So we created features that, together bundled are a powerful enhancement to digital process management through QbDVision. Specifically, what we did with our features were to enable teams to work with greater precision, scalability, and confidence. Okay, and now I'm going to break that down into the features themselves. So with this release, the benefits that you'll get are to build stronger connections, crushing silos between teams, and redefining what's possible. This is through streamlined sampling, smarter scaling with calculations, and adaptable risk capabilities. So first, starting off with faster time to market. We know that this is important, and with every release, we try to release a feature to help you get your products to the market faster. In this release, what we did was we strengthened the single source of truth by adding sample data. This is going to break down silos because it's going to improve collaboration between process and analytical teams by having your sample data together with your process data. Okay, so some of this feature, what this feature allows is to visualize samples and to also automatically generate sampling plans, and this will save you time in creating documents. Our second theme in this release is efficient scaling without errors. So here we're really helping you translate your process definitions into executable and operational workflows. So what we thought with this feature is how can we help teams transform and manage calculations that are an important part of the process definition, centralize that into the platform, and eliminate the need of going in and out of disjointed tools such as Excel and Word. This is going to help scale and manage multiple sites as you scale out your manufacturing. And our third theme here is agility in risk and compliance. So this is really about ensuring precision across the product lifecycle. We introduced a qualitative risk assessment method, and in this release, what we did was we allow you to transition between the two qualitative and quantitative risk assessment methods to fit the need and the phase of your project as it evolves to meet the regulatory requirements. Great, so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Yashka to dive into our first feature, which is sampling.
Thank you, Natalie. So I'm very excited to introduce you to our new sampling feature. And with that, we want you to say goodbye to multiple things. First being Excel sheets with sampling plans that you usually have to maintain, where you have to bring in information that are usually siloed, scattered, across multiple systems. In our case here, for example, material numbers, they come from SAP, usually owned by manufacturing. You have sample location, usually defined in a process description by your development department. And then you have control methods, asset reportables, and so on, that are usually maintained in a LIMS system by your quality unit. And all this information need to be brought together in one system. And this system is supposed to be QbDVision. It will eliminate manual processes and data integrity concerns that you normally have when you have to copy over all this information to one system, and relieves you from the review cycles that usually you have to do with a large team, where you waste hours and hours managing, making sure that all the information is correct in a very large Excel sheet here. So we want to centralize all your sampling data into one workflow, linking sampling points, quantities, all the information around the sample, assay reportables directly to your control methods and your control strategy. A single source of truth for a cohesive quality management environment. Our motivation behind it was we want to enable sample management to centralize all the sample information and then easily create sampling plans. For me, this is the biggest pain point that this industry has in the area of samples. It's the creation of the sampling plans, which usually takes a lot of time, especially for in-process controls, which are usually very complex Excel tables and take a lot of time and are very error prone as well in terms of making small mistakes that have big consequences. So what the sample feature does for you, it advances the process definition that we have today in QbDVision to include sampling information, sampling points, quantities, the related assay reportables. You can track these assay reportables by linking samples to quality, performance attributes, material attributes, and parameters. Anything in the software that can have acceptance criteria and control methods today, basically to link those to your samples that you know what you're actually measuring with that sample. We want you to visualize these samples both in the process explorer that we have today, in our process flow map that we can generate in the software easily, so that you can have a good idea where in the process actually these samples sit and when you are taking them. We introduce a new concept of time points and events for samples. That could be something like day 1, day 2, and so on for a bioreactor, or cycle 2, cycle 3 for downstream unit operation, right? So anything that helps you to reduce the numbers of samples that you actually have to create in our system that are the same, right? So let's say on day 1, 2, and 3, I'm taking the same sample, so I can define one sample as attach these 3 time points to this one sample, and I don't have to create 3 instead, right? So this can lower the burden of maintaining sampling plans by a whole magnitude. We can enable sample plan creation in Doc Builder with an automated fashion. You guys know Doc Builder. I'm going to introduce it to a new widget here later to make this even faster for you. Then we have integration mapping, so the bridge of QbDVision to other systems like MES, LIMS system, ELN, ERP, SAP. You can set up mappings, how things are called in these other systems to ease the connection of master data information that QbDVision can actually provide. And with that, I will go into the software and show you. So here I'm in a process for making a cake, and in that process now you can see here a new record type that is indicated here in purple, which is samples. Right, you can come in here and manage the samples from here, and you can add samples by clicking here on unit operation or on the step level on plus, right? Or you could as well just add another sample from an existing sample so that you can create them very easily from the process explorer view that we have today. And if you go into one of the sample records here, let's say we go into flower sample 1, I'm going to make that bigger for you guys to have a look. We provide you with all the information around the sample location here, unit operation, step, and then it's very important, the material that you're actually sampling from, followed by the type of the sample. And that is here something like release, in-process, validation, extended characterization, and so on. So it's not intended to be the information about what the sample is being measured for or with, because it could be an in-process control, and it could be in-process monitoring, but this information is actually kept with the assay reportable that we're gonna you can define further down in the sample. The sample type here is really just about the sample itself, where you can define, okay, this is a sample taken in process or at the release or for validation or extended characterization, right? The purpose more than what's happening with that sample later on. Then we have here the new time point in the event section, where I can select multiple time points that I have set up previously in the order of appearance here. And where do I actually set these up, right? So time point in events make sense in the context of a unit operation. So each unit operation now gives you the opportunity to define time points in events individually and reorder them based on your needs. So here, for example, I have pre-preparation and then the days, for example, for making my cake here, and then the final day, and here I added the test, right? So here you can come in and add more, and then also rearrange these as you need. If I continue in the sample record, the next area is around the sample matrix, the number of aliquots, the amount, the units that you need to define. So any of the physical storage and sample information that you need to capture can be entered here, followed by the logistics area where you can define the destination, the testing site, and a sample name, all again by attaching source documents here if you need to. And then the next area that we actually provide you with is the sample names. So here you can define different names for the same sample to use them in different systems. For example, the sampling code could be from LIMS or ELN system, or the internal name could be that name of this sample in another system, where a documentation code or external name is intended to display what the child sample name here is in that context. The next area that's very interesting is the asset reportable. So you can actually link to any quality or performance attribute, as well as material attributes and parameters. So anything that can contain control methods and acceptance criteria, you can add those here to get a clear link to these so that you know what you're actually measuring with that sample. The last area I want to expose you to here is the integration mappings. I mentioned it in the introduction already. So here you have first defined a system, and that is something that you can do actually in the project record, right? So each project, each process that you have in the software can have integrations. So you can define systems that you want to hook your process up with. So in this case, here is a LIMS system. I can add an MES system here on my process record as well, save it, and then I can later select from those. I'm going to delete that for a second here. You can come in here, select this here from the drop down so that you can list all the integrations that you want to capture for that particular system. Here, for example, in LIMS, I have a field called storage cont, and here I want to transition over the storage conditions from my master data that I define in QbDVision. And here I can come in, go to my sample specifications, and like in Doc Builder, I can pull in here my smart content fields, like the range of my my storage condition here, temperature, to save that actually in with the unit. Can I come in here, say check, and do the same for storage amount, for example, and also define here what I'm actually storing here as information that needs to be transferred to another system. So this will ease basically integration with our API to other systems and prepare for putting the right information together somewhere else, or pushing the right information to another system. The next area that I want to show you is tech transfer. So in the process record that I just showed you, you all know the area of for enabling tech transfer. So now here in this case here, my Magic Cake 2 has also a Magic Cake 1 recipe, and I enabled already tech transfer between these two. And what I can do now as well, like you can do that for any other record type today in the software, is you can come into the tech transfer view. You can select here samples, and then see changes between sample records as you're used to for parameters and all the other ones. So here in this case, I don't know, there's one change between these two samples here. I can come in again and hide the unchanged fields. I see, okay, here the number of aliquots I'm taking has changed from 10 to 5, and can come in here to make my assessment to advance really in the area of analytical transfers for manufacturing processes here for us. The next view that is important to show to you is our process flow map. Here we also have now samples that you can look at on the very right side here, they line up with unit operations and or with steps if they have steps selected here. And if you hover over them, you can also see the assay reportables that you're actually measuring these samples with to get a good overview where in your process you're actually taking the samples and what's happening with them. The last area I want to show to you is our doc builder capability. So I was fighting a little bit on that. We have two different sampling plans that we can enable for you right now. One is the release sampling plan. In that case here, you can come in and enter a dynamic table here from our widget selection, like you're used to for any other field of the software. You can bring samples in here, click insert, and then see or start adding smart content information like the name, type, whatever field you want to see here in this table. And if you want to also see the assay reportables, you can come in here and enter a table that has the submodel of assay reportables, which then gives you the ability to create a table in a table to repeat certain information here if there's more than one assay reportable for one sample. I'm going to click cancel here for a second to see how that looks like. For example, this one here has two different assay reportables hooked up to this one sample. And this way you can create very comprehensive sampling plans for the purpose of release testing in this case here. If you have in-process sampling plans, we want to introduce also the time point and events capability that I showed you earlier. To do that here, we have a new widget in the software. If I go to widgets now, you can see here we have templates, and then there's this first one, sampling plan in process. And what it will do for you, it will just generate this small field here. You can now bring in smart content that is conditionally displayed depending on if a sample has a time point and event or not. So how does that look like? I'm going to click cancel here for a second to show you this rendered table. And what it will do for you, basically, conditionally, this flower sample one has only pre-preparation as a selected as a time point and event. So I was showing you that before here. Pre-preparation is the only time point that is actually selected. So what we'll do is show me the aliquots and the sample amount here based basically only for that time point. And this other sample here, for example, has all these time points selected. So we'll just repeat this information for all of them so that I know each day of my manufacturing process, I have to take this sample with this amount, right? And you can basically select what you want to see here. Currently, we're fixing the left side of the table. So name, storage condition, matrix, assay reportable, control method, and limit is fixed. And we are keen to see if you want to be able to customize this in the future, but this is for us like a test to see how well this new capability is received by you. So very keen to get your feedback. And with that, I would like to give it back to Natalie.
Thank you so much for that introduction to samples. It looks, very exciting, and I like that it's an end-to-end workflow from inputting the samples, managing the data, and then the actual reporting outputs. So now I'm going to introduce our next feature, which is calculated values. Before I start with that, I'm just going to highlight, the challenges that we've all experienced with calculating values. We know that calculations are a key part of the process definition. A lot of parameters are related, quantitatively, and they all relate back to some key inputs that you control. So with this, typically calculations are managed, and it's very manual, a manual effort. It's very tedious and time consuming. If you think about, how much information you have to manage for a process overall, and then you think about the actual number of calculations, managing the values, operations, inputting them, and then also verifying them. And this effort leads to kind of an error-prone workflow, right? Especially when you're jumping in and out of different softwares and you're translating values. So all in all, what we did was we want to address these challenges. We wanted to allow users to define these calculations within QbDVision strengthen that process definition in the centralized platform, and then also supercharge these calculations with smart content so that they are always actively related. And so when you make a change to one input, it will automatically propagate to other related parameters. Right, so with this feature itself, what you're going to be able to do, again, is just integrate and automate that important part of the process, quantitatively relate different parameters to strengthen that single source of truth within QbDVision and really get your full process definition, whether whichever site that you're working at. So you can define a process definition independent of scale. You can translate now this process definition to an operational process at different manufacturing scales, whichever scale it's set. And previously, you had to perform these calculations outside of the software and then input the updated value depending on what the scale was. And this is what we this is what we addressed with this feature. So it enables scale up, scale down, and mass balancing workflows. And again, because it's within QbDVision, along with all of your other parameter information, it reduces transcription errors and improves efficiency in one software. And what it does is sets us up with a foundation so that we can enable a facility fit workflow in the future. So with that, I'm going to hop into the software to demo the feature. So here I am in a demo project. This is for our AMAP case study at the 500-liter scale. I have some process parameters for my cell expansion step in fixed vessels. I'm going to open temperature record, which I already have pulled up. And when I edit this and I scroll down, so the calculator is available for any numerical fields that you are able to input a number today. You still have the choice to input that number directly, or you can actually calculate it. So typically this is for acceptance criteria. So this is where I'm going to show you the example. Here I already have my first acceptance criteria populated in degrees Celsius. And let's say, for manufacturing sites operating in the US, I want to convert this to Fahrenheit. So I'm going to add another, I flipped it. Let's see, this is EU. This is for Europe. And then let's say in the US, I want to calculate this in Fahrenheit. Yep. So what you'll see is to launch the calculator, there is now an icon next to these numerical fields. When I click this, you will have our formula builder pop up. Before I actually walk through this example, I'm just going to show you, play around with this to just show you what it looks like. So I can still enter a direct value here. So let's say I add something like that and press calculate. What you're going to see is this value here. I can still put my cursor in and update this as well. What we have in this formula builder is we have functions available similar to other software, and we have a menu over here where you can search more complicated functions for more complex calculations. And this just helps you with the formatting of those. So let's say I want to round this. We know that, companies have specific rounding rules and they're important to adhere to. So I want to round this to 3 decimal places. I go ahead and press calculate, and you can see that it updated here to 3 decimal places. And this value is going to be saved. Okay, so now to resume to the actual calculation. So in order to convert my degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit, what I want to do is multiply by 9 bits and add 32 off of that target Celsius. So this is really the exciting part, that we've supercharged these calculations with smart content. You'll see in this formula builder that we have the smart content menu, and this is going to let you click through and add your smart content. So here I'm looking for our existing EU. So this is the target that I have in Celsius. I'm going to multiply by 9 bits and add 32. And I'm going to go ahead and press calculate. and that's just going to convert my value. So this looks pretty simple, straightforward, right? This is what you did outside of the software, and then you would come in and transcribe 98.6 as your result. Another thing, what I'll show you in just a second is how these are automatically linked, and this is where we really think the value is in streamlining it with your process definition. Okay, so I'm going to open this. The nice part is we have validations built in. So let's say if I add this extra bracket, what you're going to see is some error messages below. So we have these built in to help you with the formatting of the calculation itself. You can just read and translate, what you need, update your formula and press calculate. We also have a raw error here in case you just want to see exactly what character is being affected. So the 43rd character in this case. And then once I remove that, the error will disappear because the formatting is okay. Another important thing that I want to call out is, in this case, I added smart content from another acceptance criteria within the same record. We actually have the ability to add smart content from other records as well within the same process. So here, if you're using Doc Builder, you're going to be familiar with the smart content format. But you can see I can load my process parameters, and what it's doing is it's loading the most recent data. And I can click in this. So this is our existing record. I can scroll down and click for, process parameters in different steps or different unit operations. So if you think about converting volumetric flow rates, if you calculate those based on your column diameter and height, think about for chromatography, calculating resonance times, etc. So this is really how you're going to build your network of quantitative relationships between those parameters, so you don't have to go and update them each time. Okay, so going to cancel this because we have this saved. I'm going to go ahead and save this acceptance criteria. And so now, again, the exciting part with this is now what happens when you make a change. So let's say we are saving this to our record. This is our existing process definition. And while we are waiting for this to load, one thing I will show you is how this appears in dynamic tables. So here you can see this record is at the top. We have a visual differentiator between calculated values and directly input values and dynamic tables. So you can just see and have more context of where these values are coming from. In this case, target was input, and I actually did a border of target -1 and target +1 for the lower and upper limits. So I have that highlighted in blue, and then when I hover over, you actually get the source of the formula, so you can trace through and see, what record and how is this being calculated. I'm gonna hop back to my, okay, we have a circular dependency, one moment. Let this reload. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a change in that acceptance criteria, and we'll see the others automatically update. So let me just quickly add that again. We're just going to switch it and pretend for today that Europe uses Fahrenheit and that they are the incorrect ones. Okay. Oh, maybe this one here. And then it's times 9/5 plus 32. Okay, let's say this is Fahrenheit. So imagine, I saved the record again. And then in this case, what I'm doing is, we did a development study and we found a temperature shift study, and we want to shift this, the target temperature up by 0.5 degree. So once I enter this here and I press save, you're going to see 3 values update, right? And again, this is the power of building out these calculations within QbDVision. You have the lower and upper limit shift based on those calculations, and then you have the target as well automatically calculate to that new value. Right, so with that, that wraps up our calculated values feature. And so I encourage you to use this feature, test it out, and again, let us know your feedback and what else could help you in this area. And with that, I will hand it back to Yashka.
Definitely. I think it's a brilliant feature that it opens up so many use cases for scale up, scale down, multiple scales, being in sync all the time based on single inputs. So I think there's a lot that can be accomplished here with this new functionality. So brilliant. Thank you, Natalie, for showing that. So I'm happy now to extend our capabilities around risk assessment here for you. We have taken another step in the area of risk classification that we introduced last release to you, to say goodbye also to gaps in quality oversight during transitions from early days to mature processes. So that means basically you can switch seamlessly between qualitative and quantitative risk assessments of all your projects at any time, and always be compliant with ICH Q9 requirements. Also, the inefficient manual workflow slowing down risk evaluations go away, because you can just transition existing risk to something more simple or to something more comprehensive. You can choose the best approach for each stage of your product lifecycle, may it be a simple qualitative risk assessment for new modalities in early development phases, or reduce complexity during commercial manufacturing, because you don't want to expose all your shop floor personnel to complex evaluations why something's critical or not, right? Then also you can switch to risk ranking or preliminary hazard analysis for quantitative precision of mature late stage projects at any time, right? And go back to something more simple when it needs to be. Our motivation here was especially to enable risk classification in the product area. So with the last release, we gave you the ability to do this in the process area of our software, and then the seamless switch between risk assessment types that was not possible in an existing project once a certain risk assessment type was selected. So what it does is it enables classification for product. We can do simple CQA risk assessments, basically. You can enable switching between qualitative and quantitative risk assessment at any time in the product lifecycle. And there's also validations that help you select the right risk management plan to support your risk assessment, so that the plan that you're actually selecting fits the classification requirements. And then there's a validation happening here. And I'm going to show you that in a minute in the software. So I'm actually switching over. And here I'm in a new project where I can now come in and define my risk assessment type, and also my risk management plan. So here in this case, let's say I want to use classification for everything here. So I'm going to click on all of those, right? And now I want to select a risk management plan. I'm going to take this one. Okay. So here I get validation from my system that a certain settings in my risk management plan do not make sense. So I have, for example, selected always critical, and this tells me, okay, then needs to be unselected for impact scores, so that I can actually use classification for these kind of records, right? And this will help users a lot to select a risk management plan that will work. So this one, for example, works, and you can easily have a look as well how that risk management plan is set up, right? So just to walk you through that process, we are now in this classification everywhere risk management plan. We are in the product area for our TQAs. What needs to be set up to make this work is that the impact scores don't have always critical, but it needs to be a no for all of them. Uncertainty needs to be disabled, and then the criticality levels and also the risk labels and colors should match one-to-one to impact scores, so that you don't see any hiccups in the system in terms of colors or labels that don't line up correctly. So that's the only requirement that we have. Once you have one of these risk management plans set up, you can easily switch. To show you the switch, I'm going over to an existing project here. Now I'm here in my project 21, risk classification everywhere for aging, and can come in here in my risk area. That was not editable in the last release, but now I can come in here and edit. And in this edit mode here, I can again select whatever risk assessment type I want. And then come in here, select my classification everywhere, or let's say I'm going to try another one. Okay, this one is not set up correctly. All right, so I can't use that one. Uncertainty must be disabled, for example. I have it still on, and then always critical is apparently selected for some of those. So this will help you actually to set this up correctly. And if I go to classification everywhere, right, and now I want to hit save here, what it will also tell me is the consequences. So whenever you switch between classification and risk ranking or preliminary hazard analysis, what will happen is that certain information can't make it into the new version, right? For example, here, if I go from classification to risk ranking, it tells me that when changing to risk ranking, assessment type, impact, and uncertainty information will not be migrated since scoring may differ between linked attributes, right? So scoring information definitely gets lost when you change from risk ranking here. So these values won't make it basically to the updated version because you just don't need them anymore, right? Or in classification you didn't have those, right? And now in risk ranking they're enabled again, so you would have to assign the numbers to that risk scores again. So this will help you to transition seamlessly with the least effort that is required from your side. In the product area of the software, now I'm in a FQA record for bioburden. We have now the same functionality that we have in process record. So you can set up risk labels based on the risk management plan that you have come up with without having to assign linkages to general attributes. You can still do that here in the software, but it's not related to risk anymore. So it's a trace to general attributes is up here. You can justify your risk label, and you can also come in here and add source documents. And here you can still link to your general attributes if there's a certain justification why something is critical based on a information, I don't know, like a safety concern or whatever. You can define that here. Based on that, also, since product area has now classification, certain reports that we offer in the report section of the software today are not useful anymore, right? You have risk ranking report here, for example, so it needs risk ranking data. If you don't have it during classification, the report cannot be generated. So this is something that we highlight for you, and also in each report that we have today in the software, you can now see with which risk management plan is active and which product risk assessment type is active. Especially if you go back in time and you have switched in between, you can still render the data when risk ranking was active in this particular project here, if you go to a time point where this was actually the case. The same is true for other areas of the software, for example, requirement summary report here. You always are ahead of things where you know what risk assessment type and what risk assessments or risk management plan was actually selected, both for the product and the process area. And then based on that, the actual information is rendered correctly. For example, here, for this FQA now in classification, I don't see any values that are calculated to come up with risk, right? I just have here my justification for my risk plus the linkages to my general attributes that I have defined in the software, and that's it, right? So it really tailors the views of these reports exactly to the information that should be displayed based on the risk assessment type that you have selected. Okay, and with that, I would like to give it back to Natalie.
Thank you for that update. So now I'm going to wrap up with sharing the additional updates that we made. So in each release, we are always working towards continuous improvement. We are always looking to create new features in different areas. So this is kind of a collective list of those updates that we've made. So we updated risk management and risk linking to downstream unit operations. So previously, you could only risk link within the same unit operation. And now we open that to any unit operations that are further downstream. So this should help create more accurate relationships that reflect your process. We also added new field options and then new field themselves regarding control strategy and control methods. This one I'd like to call out in dynamic tables. We have the option to now view and sort process parameters by process order. This is going to be very helpful, with all of the process parameters that exist within a process. Typically, it makes the most sense to handle them, in order, and that's kind of the basis that you go off of in most cases. Okay, we made some UI changes for dynamic acceptance criteria. So we moved the primary reporting criteria label to be able to extend the group and label fields. For process menu, this is another nice one to call out. This is also a UI change where we give you the ability to hide archive processes with the existing show archive toggle. And this is really going to help for those customers that manage a lot of processes within the same project. Now, all those archived ones are just cleared out and you can opt into viewing them with that toggle. Another important one to call out is a company-wide setting option that we enable. On this one, you're going to go ahead and request for us to turn it on and off for your company. Again, because it's company-wide, we just want to ensure that control. This option allows you to set the display order for record IDs and names so that record IDs can appear after the names. We know that some record IDs can be confusing, as the system assigned IDs can be confusing, especially for customers who have their own ID naming system that don't necessarily match up to the ones that our systems create. And this is going to appear in records, in reports, and so it just visually kind of hides or lowers the prominence of the ID. Okay, and lastly, we added a unsupported browser warning. So this is just to alert any user that just happens to be in a browser that we don't typically support just for the risk of usage. So we, always recommend something like Chrome. Okay. So to wrap up, really our goal with each release is to connect the dots. We want to keep moving forward in our mission to help deliver high quality products to patients faster and more efficiently while ensuring compliance and excellence in our industry. I think this is all a goal that we collectively share. And as a tool, for you as your digital CMC platform, we really want to supercharge this goal for the industry overall. All right. If you haven't heard, we are going to be hosting our 2025 Digital Summit in February. So it's returning in Austin, Texas. It will be a 3-day event that will showcase how leading life science organizations are successfully adopting and scaling digital CMC principles. So some of the key sessions will showcase enterprise-wide digital transformations, real-world strategies for integrating digital workflows that can accelerate the development and manufacturing lifecycle, and also explore new applications of AI, digital modeling, and automation. So you can explore the event through this QR code, and we hope to see you there. Each year, we have so much fun. It's interactive, and we all learn so much about how the industry is operating and how we can move it forward. And with that, I will hand it over to Ben for our Q&A session.
All right. Thanks, Natalie. With that, we'll go ahead and open up the Q&A section. Again, we do have the QR code here if you are interested to go ahead and take a look at the information that we have on the summit. Let me open up the questions and see what we have. We have a couple questions. The first one here is, are there existing integrations to LIMS?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take that because I talked about it. So no, there's no existing integrations. We ease the integration by providing you with the integration mapping feature that we have in the software to ultimately build this tailored to your LIMS system, because there's so many. It's still responsibility of the company, but we provide guidance on how to use our API. We have good documentation around that as well by now. That should help you to easily set this up.
All right, thanks, Yashka. The next one we have here, regarding the IPC plan creation you showed, can I customize this?
To a certain extent, right? I mean, I could show it again, but basically I showed the left and the right side of things, right? The time point and events part you can customize basically. So what shows for each time point and event. So a bioreactor day that is assigned to a sample, you see this information repeatedly, right? Where then on the left-hand side of this widget, of this new widget, we have certain information that cannot be customized right now. What we think is most valuable information that you should see. You can still choose to delete it, right? After exporting this information to your documents that you create. But it's a start, and we would like to get more feedback from you guys after you use it, if customization or further customization of this widget is useful. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Next one we have here, can only acceptance criteria be calculated using the calculated parameters?
So I will take that question. So no, it's not only acceptance criteria. It's basically any field where we allowed you to input a numerical value. You will now see that calculator icon available and can enter a formula. So think, in drug substance, drug product, and material records in the property sections, there is density and molecular weight. I also showed in the demo there's the lower operating limits and upper operating limits. So again, any option, or sorry, any field where you could input a numerical value.
Thanks, Natalie. Following on the same line of questioning here, when using calculations, what will appear in dynamic tables, doc builder, and reports?
Okay, thank you. So in dynamic tables, like I showed, so you will have the calculated value up here. It will be visually differentiated, and then on hover, you can view that formula. Whereas in doc builder and report, as it exists today, you can see the actual calculated value. And our thinking here was about, where do you input and manage, actively manage the data versus where is an output and where do you report on it. So that's where we kind of made that separation in terms of the formulas versus the actual calculated values.
Great, thanks. I've got two more I see here in the Q&A section. So we've got a few more minutes. If there's any other questions, please get them in the Q&A section. The next one I have here is what happens when I change from risk ranking to risk classification to my numbers, for example, uncertainty, and then if I switch back to using risk ranking.
Okay, I think that's for me. So yeah, uncertainty needs to be switched off for classification, right? I think I explained that in the risk management plan. So you will get this validation error when you try to switch to a plan that has uncertainty switched on for classification. So these values will be gone, right? Especially if you go back then, if from classification back to risk ranking, they don't reappear, that they're just gone, right? So people will have to do the uncertainty scoring again to bring this information in, but that's basically the limitation that we have. Once you go to a more simple one, right, it's more difficult to go to something more advanced than afterwards. Where if you change from risk ranking to classification first, right, you can maintain the risk classification or the risk, the criticality of things, right, because you have that information already. Just without uncertainty. Right? We have this mapping tool during the switch that allows you actually to hook these up correctly.
Great. Thanks, Yashka. And then the last one, also on risk, can I also change the RMP when I copy a process?
Good question. So in the past, the only way to change an RMP was by copying process, right? We have actually disabled this functionality now that we that you can do it in any project at any process at any point in time. So you don't really need to have the copy functionality to change an RMP anymore. So this has actually been disabled in that area.
All right, thanks. Well, I don't see any other questions in the Q&A section. Let me just check the chat real quick. While I'm doing this, I just want to make one more reminder for everyone. We did send out a survey right before the webinar today. So if you do have a moment, please go ahead and provide some feedback there. It's just one question. Any feedback you're able to provide, we certainly appreciate. And I don't see anything in the chat. So if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and end today's webinar. And as we mentioned before, we will be sending out the recording as well as the materials from today's session. Hope you all have a great rest of your day and your week and a wonderful holiday season. All right, thanks everybody.
Oh.